I hired a fake boyfriend just to make my ex jealous. But instead, I accidentally picked up a billionaire. And somehow, he decided to play along. This was a terrible idea. I knew it. I absolutely knew it. And yet I still sat there in that cafe, checking my phone like my life depended on it. The message from the rent-a-date agency didn't change. He'll be 20 minutes late. Look for a blue shirt. 20 minutes. Which meant I had exactly 20 minutes before I had to walk into my ex-boyfriend's gallery opening. With a fake boyfriend. Yeah, because 1 month ago, I got drunk and texted Brandon, my rich, pretentious, emotionally unavailable ex, that I was seeing someone amazing. I wasn't, not even close. And now, he invited me to his gallery. Personally, which meant one thing. He wanted to see me fail. You look like you're about to commit a crime. I blinked. There was a man sitting across from me. I hadn't even seen him arrive. Dark hair, sharp features, calm, confident, and blue shirt. Oh no. I straightened immediately and said, "Are you from the agency?" He didn't look confused. He looked entertained. Then he said slowly, "That depends. What do you need me to be?" That should have been my first red flag. But instead, I leaned forward and said, "I need you to pretend to be my boyfriend. Just for tonight." There was a pause. Then he smiled. Not awkward. Not hesitant. Just interested. "All right," he said. "Start from the beginning." And just like that, I made the worst decision of my life. Because that man was not from the agency. And I wouldn't realize that until it was already too late. By the time we reached the gallery, I almost believed the lie myself. Ethan, that was his name, walked beside me like he belonged there. Like he belonged everywhere. At one point, I realized I was gripping his arm a little too tightly. He leaned closer and murmured quietly, "Relax. I'm not going anywhere." I muttered back, "Maybe I want you to—" He actually smiled at that, which was not helping. Then, I heard it. "Miles." I froze. Brandon. Of course he looked perfect. Of course he looked like he had everything under control. And standing next to him was Derek. Tall, attractive, effortless. The kind of man Brandon had left me for. The kind of man I was never supposed to compete with. Brandon's gaze shifted from me to Ethan. Slowly, carefully. "You brought someone," he said. I straightened slightly, forced confidence into my voice. "Yeah," I said. "I did." Then I made it clear. "This is my boyfriend." There was a brief silence. And then Ethan stepped forward smoothly, like this was second nature to him. He extended his hand and said, "Ethan Castellano." And that's when everything changed. Brandon's expression cracked. "Castellano," he repeated. Ethan didn't even blink. "My family, yes." And just like that, I watched Brandon lose control of the situation. Because suddenly, I wasn't the one trying to prove something anymore. He was. I should have been focusing on Brandon, on Derek, on the entire reason I came here in the first place. But instead, I kept noticing Ethan. The way his hand rested lightly at my back. The way he leaned in just enough when he spoke. The way everything he did felt. Natural. Too natural. At some point, I pulled him slightly aside, lowering my voice. "Okay," I said. "Be honest with me." He glanced at me, calm as ever. "Always. You don't look like someone who works for a rent-a-date service." That got a reaction. Small, but I caught it. A pause. Then, "Who said I do?" My stomach dropped. "What?" He exhaled slowly, like he'd been expecting this moment. "You assumed," he said. "I didn't correct you." I stared at him. "You what?" "You walked up, asked if I was from the agency, and before I could answer, you started explaining everything." "That's not—" I stopped, thought back. He was right. "Oh my God," I whispered. "You're not my fake boyfriend." "No," he said calmly. "Then where is he?" "Probably stuck in traffic," Ethan replied. Very confused. I ran a hand through my hair, trying not to lose it. "This is insane. I just introduced you to my ex as my boyfriend." "Technically," he cut in lightly, "I am your boyfriend." I stared at him. This is not the time for jokes. "I'm not joking." And then he glanced past me, toward Brandon. Also, he added quietly. He's been watching us this entire time. I turned. Brandon was staring. Not casually, not politely. Staring. Like something wasn't adding up anymore. I need to leave, I said. You could, Ethan agreed. Then softer. But if you walk out now, he wins. That hit. Because he was right. Again. I clenched my jaw. I hate this. I know. Stay, he added. I didn't move. Didn't argue. And that's when everything shifted. Because in that moment, this stopped being about revenge and started becoming something else. Ethan looked at me differently after that. More focused. More intentional. All right, he said quietly. If we're doing this, we do it properly. What does that mean? He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer. Close enough that I felt it before I processed it. Ethan, trust me, he said softly. And then, he pulled me into his tight embrace. Not rushed. Not dramatic. Just steady. Warm. Real. My brain short-circuited. Because this wasn't part of the plan. This wasn't supposed to feel like anything. And yet, my hand had already moved, gripping his jacket, pulling him closer, like I didn't want him to let go. When he finally pulled back, my senses weren't steady anymore. Was that okay? He asked quietly. I swallowed. That was... I didn't finish. Didn't need to. Because he already knew. And when I glanced across the room, Brandon had gone completely still. His glass slipping slightly in his hand. Yeah, that definitely worked. That was the moment I realized. I wasn't acting anymore. We left the gallery not long after that. Not because we had to, but because staying any longer felt dangerous. We ended up at a quiet diner. The kind of place where reality settles back in whether you like it or not. I sat across from him, studying him. Start talking, I said. Ethan exhaled slowly. I'm Ethan Castellano. Yeah, I figured that part out. My family owns Castellano Industries. I figured that part out too. A faint smile. But I don't work with them. That got my attention. Why not? Because I didn't want everything I built to be credited to my last name. He leaned back slightly. I started my own company. No connections. No shortcuts. And it got acquired last month. I blinked. So you're telling me you accidentally picked up a billionaire, he finished. I leaned back. Of course I did. That actually made him laugh. And for the first time, he looked normal, not intimidating, not untouchable. Just him. Then his expression shifted. More serious. I need you to understand something, Miles. I met his gaze. I wasn't pretending tonight, he said. My chest tightened slightly. You were honest with me. From the start. You didn't know who I was, and you didn't care. His voice lowered just a little. That doesn't happen to me. Silence. Then, when I hugged you, he continued, it wasn't for your ex. My heartbeat picked up. It was because I wanted to. And just like that, everything became very real. And that's when things got complicated. Because I wanted it too. He leaned forward slightly. We could try this, he said. I frowned. Try what? This. He gestured between us. Not fake. Not for show. Just real. I stared at him. Because this was not part of the plan. None of this was. You're serious, I said. Completely. And if I say no, I'll respect it, he said simply. And I'll leave. No pressure. No manipulation. Just honest. And somehow, that made it harder. I looked at him. Really looked at him. Then I said quietly, yeah. A pause. Then clearer. Yeah, I want to try. And the way he smiled, that might have been the moment I was already in too deep. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. I groaned, half asleep, reaching for it. And then I froze. 15 missed calls. Dozens of messages. All from one person. Brandon. I sat up slowly. You've got to be kidding me. The first message read, we need to talk. The next, I made a mistake. And then, please call me. I stared at the screen. Because a month ago, this is exactly what I wanted. Him realizing. Him regretting. Him coming back. And now, I felt nothing. That's when the doorbell rang. I already knew who it was. I opened the door, and there he was. Brandon. Disheveled. Tense. Nothing like the composed man from the gallery. "We need to talk," he said immediately, stepping inside before I could answer. I shut the door slowly. "You've got about 30 seconds, I said. He turned toward me, running a hand through his hair. "I made a mistake." There it was. "I shouldn't have broken up with you," he continued. "I thought I wanted someone who fit my world, but Derek, he's exhausting. Everything is about image, status, appearances." I crossed my arms. "And you think that's different from you?" He flinched. "I was wrong, Miles. About everything. You were real. You didn't care about money or connections, and I didn't appreciate that." He stepped closer. "I want another chance." Silence. And in that silence, I realized something important. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was done. "No," I said. Just one word. But it hit harder than anything else. Brandon blinked. "What?" "No," I repeated. "I'm not interested." "You don't mean that?" "I do." His expression tightened. "Is this because of him? Because of Castellano?" I let out a quiet breath. "This is because of you." He didn't respond. So I continued. "You didn't want me when I was just me. But now that you think I've upgraded, now I'm worth coming back for." "That's not." "It is." My voice stayed calm. Steady. "You don't want me, Brandon. You want what I represent now." A pause. Then I stepped toward the door and opened it. "Leave." He didn't move. "Miles," he said, "leave." We both turned. Ethan stood there, coffee in one hand, a paper bag in the other, and an expression that made it very clear he had heard enough. And just like that, everything flipped. Brandon straightened slightly. "Castellano," he said. Ethan didn't react. He stepped inside calmly, setting the coffee down. "You were leaving?" he said. Not loud, not aggressive, just final. Brandon looked between us, and for the first time, he didn't argue. He left. The door closed behind him. And just like that, it was over. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "That felt good," I admitted. Ethan glanced at me. Yeah, I said, letting out a small laugh. I thought I'd feel something more dramatic. Anger. Closure. Something. And nothing, I said honestly. Just relief. He nodded slightly. "Good." There was a small pause. Then he held out a coffee. "Your order," he said. I blinked. "You remembered?" "You mentioned it once," he replied. And that, for some reason, hit harder than everything else. I took the cup. "You're dangerous, you know that?" He smiled slightly. "I've been told." Then his expression shifted. "There's something else." I frowned. "What?" "There are about 15 photographers outside your building." I stared at him. "What?" "Apparently someone saw me come in," he said casually. "And now the media is very interested." I groaned, dragging a hand down my face. "This is your life?" "Part of it," he admitted. "Paparazzi. Headlines. People judging you based on who you're dating." He watched me carefully. "If you want out," he added, quieter now, "this is your chance." That mattered, because he meant it. He would let me walk away. No pressure. No expectations. Just a choice. So I looked at him, at the man who showed up with coffee, who defended me without hesitation, who turned a stupid mistake into something real. And I said, "No." He blinked slightly. "No, I'm not walking away," I said. Then, with a small smirk, "But I'm going out there in pajamas." That caught him off guard. "You're serious?" "If they want a story," I said, grabbing my coffee, "they're getting the real version." For a second, he just stared at me. And then he laughed. And that felt right. Because for the first time, I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. 6 months later, the headlines were still ridiculous. The attention hadn't stopped. And yeah, dating Ethan Castellano came with complications. A lot of them. But none of that mattered. Because this wasn't fake anymore. One evening, I leaned over his shoulder, reading yet another article about us. "They still think this started as a plan," I said. Ethan smirked slightly. "Technically, it did." "Yeah," I admitted. "Worst plan I've ever had." He turned slightly, pulling me closer. "Best outcome, though." I smiled. "Yeah." A pause. Then he added casually, "I still think we should thank Brandon." I raised a brow. "For what?" For being terrible, he said simply. I laughed. Yeah, I said, maybe we should. Then I leaned in and kissed him. No pretending, no audience, no pressure, just real.